What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Move the Sticks podcast. DJ Buck and our good friend Lance Zierlein joining the show today. Lance, I'll start with you first of all. We're not paying you for this, are we? I just need to know what my expectation level should be.
No, they should be very low.
Okay.
Expectations. You won't be disappointed.
Yeah,
Lance is in the club. Lance,
Yeah.
Welcome to the playoff club. So we got the Trash Trolls, we got the Padres, and then we got the Dodgers in the building. So everyone is in. Everyone got a little skin in the game this year.
Everyone is in. Most of us have injured pitching. One of us has a future Hall of Famer that won't make the playoff roster. So we'll see what happens.
Whoa, who's the future Hall of Famer not making the playoff roster?
Verlander. He's been terrible
yeah.
since he's come back from his neck injury that lasted 3 months. They're like, my neck hurts. It's like the end of the year for him. It's unbelievable. Yeah. But that age is undefeated, as we find out in football all the time. It just takes longer for certain players. Verlander, Tom Brady. But age will eventually catch up with you. It just does it at different times for different players in different sports.
Yeah, we won't talk any more baseball here, but I mean the Pods did take 2 out of 3 from the Astros, or 8-4 against the Dodgers, but we'll just keep the show moving. So let's get on to some football conversation here. Looking at the games this weekend, the division's stacked. By the way, last baseball take. Don't pitch to Shohei Ohtani. He deserves the Barry Bonds treatment. You guys remember like Barry Bonds would be like, I remember him getting walked like the bases loaded. Just being like, don't even mess with him. Don't mess with him. He's on a heater, big time heater right now. All right, let's go Thursday night football. Buck, Cowboys, Giants. Giants coming off a big game. Cowboys, I don't want to use the word panic, but man, there was a lot of chatter from inside that building after they got hammered last week. What do you look for in this ball game?
Man, it's amazing how quickly things change. It seemed like just a couple of weeks ago we were talking about the Cowboys going to the Super Bowl based on how they whooped the Cleveland Browns, and now
turns out Cleveland's not very good.
Now the sky is falling. Look, it's going to be more of the same for the Cowboys. The Cowboys have an issue because they can't protect their defense with their offense because they don't have the firepower that they once had. C.J. Lamb is a great weapon to retain, and they needed to retain him. You got Dak Prescott, but you don't have enough complementary weapons on the outside. The offensive line has been a little up and down, and that's to be expected when you have so many young guys kind of in the mix. And so their defense actually needs to be carrying the water more so than the offense. I just don't know if they have that capability. Against the Giants, though, they should be able to handle that because right now, first thing we're doing is double team Malik Neighbors and make somebody else have to win the game. But you can't allow number one to go bonkers on the perimeter because he's proven that he can do it by himself.
I mean, Dallas can't stop anyone. Historically poor against the run. Numbers that we've never seen before. I mean, they're so bad you got to reach back into the 60s and 50s. If you can't stop the run, then it changes everything because you have to change defensive concepts, philosophies, alignments. It changes how long you have the possession of the football on offense, limits the amount of targets certain wide receivers may get. And it just fundamentally breaks you down mentally, like when a team can really whip you up front offensively with the running game. And I think right now we can talk about Dak, we can talk about CD's not happy and Micah Parsons and Mike McCarthy on the hot seat. If you can't stop the run, and I had an NFL, somebody from a team reach out just saying, why did they bring back Mike Zimmer? His whole thing was, and this is a guy for another team just said, I thought that they should have gone in a different direction with a younger coach and somebody who's really on the come up because he just, the thought was it's not getting done with Zim. Now, there's only so much Zim can do. At some point, you got to get off blocks. You got to stack them, shed them, and make tackles.
Yeah. One of the things I was looking at in this game in regards to Neighbors, one of the cool things with Next Gen Stats, they have all these little numbers and nuggets you can pull. And I was curious about this because it looks like when you're watching it, they're keeping them on the move. One of the hardest things, and Buck, you can attest to this for these young wideouts, is just getting off the line of scrimmage. Even if you're, explosive and dynamic and quick, just you don't see as much press coverage in college as you will in the NFL. What they've done with Neighbors is put him in motion. He's been in motion 31 snaps this year, or 31 times this year, 17 in motion at the snap. So on those snaps, he's been targeted on 12 of the 20 routes when used in pre-snap motion. He's converted that into 9 for 134 yards. That's 20 more than any other player. So Look, finding out he's your best player, that's easy. We can all see that. But then finding out ways to help a young player get off and get rolling. It's not just targets, Buck. It's figuring out how to get him going, get him free, get him loose, and motion does that.
Yeah, motion absolutely does it. And you're right, DJ. Look, we can talk about the X's and O's, but really it's about the Jimmies and Joes. What the X's and O's are supposed to do is to help the Jimmies and Joes play better. And with Malik Neighbors, Brian Daboll has made a concerted effort to give him opportunities to make big plays. And look, we knew he was a dog competitor when he was coming out of LSU. I think we've seen all of that. That team needed someone that had a little dog in them to kind of change the energy in the locker room. Malik Neighbors has given them a high-level playmaker who also has that culture changer attitude that they needed.
You know, reaching back into college for a second, I remember studying not only Hendon Hooker, but Jalen Hyatt when he came out of Tennessee. And one of the things that really impressed me, he's a slender wide receiver who, the question, he's blazing fast, but could he get off press? So Josh Heupel, the play caller and head coach, he started putting him in motion a lot. And a lot of times he was motioning wide because he wanted to get him out wide, but he wanted to have a way to keep him, as you just mentioned, DJ, on the move to make it more difficult, almost a running start in many regards. And you've got a guy with 4.3 speed and Malik Neighbors, and you're getting him on the move. I mean, the job of the defensive back just got that much tougher. And I do think I'm always interested that more teams don't use the movement and pre-snap motion to kind of create not only matchup issues because you're switching teams that don't travel corners, they end up switching corners on them, or just giving them an opportunity to pick up a runway of speed before he gets off the line.
Yeah, Peyton Manning used to always like the static offense. He liked to be able to line up, look at a defense, see what he was getting, and that's how they operated. And obviously a Hall of Fame career. He was very much the minority. It helps movement, helps identify coverages. It helps make things a lot simpler for the quarterback. And I saw a number the other day, just like the best offenses in the leagues are the movement offenses. It's motions, it's shifts. Those are the teams that are having the most success, doing a nice job with that. All right, let's cherry pick some more of these games here. We'll go through and grab a couple that are interesting. The next one for me that I find fascinating is Rams Bears. Lance, we were talking the other day, Bucky and I were talking with Rhett about the job that McVay has done as a teacher to be able to overcome injuries that they've had over the years, to get the next guy in the lineup and then to get immediate production from them. I feel like that from what we do and looking at players in the draft, we can't control where they go. It sure makes it a lot easier on you when you go to a place like the Rams where they know how to develop their guys.
I mean, my goodness, the job that, I remember there was a time where, I always thought McVay was a good coach, but Les Snead threw away all the, we're going to trade the picks. We're going to do this. FTP. We don't need those picks. And you look now, and they've done some of the best work in the draft over the last 2 or 3 years of any team in pro football. You've got McVay with the next up mentality. When Cooper Kupp went down, Puka Nacua became, arguably, you could have argued strongly that he was offensive rookie of the year. Now, they gave it to the right guy, C.J. Stroud. Yeah. And you could have given defensive rookie of the year to Kobe
Turner.
Kobe Turner.
Yep.
They made the right move and gave it to both the Houston players. Let's just on the record, let me
keep that bread buttered. Keep that bread buttered.
Say that for my city. But how about that? I mean, those guys were day 2 and day 3 picks, and they're over here fighting for rookie of the year offensively and defensively. So it's been a combination of the right guys and then really growing guys up, growing your own. And I think it's ironic that a team and that's what Ryan Poles is trying to do too. He's trying to grow his own in Chicago. You and I texted back and forth a little bit on Sunday. I was mentioning a little bit about Caleb Williams. I thought Caleb Williams' the second half. This is a really interesting game because can the Rams do it again with the injuries they have, and can they continue to ride this momentum? But also Caleb Williams, I thought the second half of that game against the Colts really started to come on. There were some moments where I said, oh, now this is what I saw at USC for the first time. And it's only game 3, so that's kind of normal. So I got a feeling we're going to start seeing a different Caleb Williams moving forward, which I think makes this a really intriguing game. I like Chicago in this one. I think it's time for them to get right. But, man, you keep picking against the Rams, and you will absolutely go bust because, man, do they get it done.
They do get in. I think Sean McVay is just such a brilliant coach. He's kind of figured out how to do more with less, and getting their young players on. I think that it's underrated in terms of the development process with I would say this, the third round of later guys. They've been able to get a lot of unheralded guys on the field early. For the Bears, though, I just want to see them take a little bit off Caleb Williams' plate. I feel like he's having to do so much so early, like 50 plus pass attempts, throwing it all over the yard. And while he's talented enough, obviously, to handle that, I don't know if, like, from a maturation standpoint, I don't know if that's the best way to go about it. Like, we saw CJ have a lot of attempts early. They scaled it down, and then his game kind of took off. And as he got better, they put more on his plate. I feel like the Bears are kind of treating him like as a 10-year vet, even though he's 3 games into his NFL career.
Remember, we're all about the same age. Lance may be a decade older, but when you look at our childhood growing up, we had things which the younger generation, unfortunately, I don't think has been exposed to, called a teeter-totter on the playground. Remember those things?
Mm-hmm.
Lance is seeing this in black and white right now. But so the teeter-totter, right? You go up, you go down, and then you get somebody that's, if you can find the kid that's just the same exact size as you, you just keep that thing perfectly straight. So I feel like all this negativity and turmoil on Caleb, the Bears, the expectation that if they win this week against the Rams at home, a winnable game, they're 2-2. They're 2-2. They've kind of leveled things out. I think everything calms down. I think some of that pressure that is starting to build, that noise. Yeah, Buck, that's the right word. I think that kind of calms down. And I think once that calms down, I think you'll see the better version of Caleb Williams. But on the other side of it, Buck, they lose this game. They're all of a sudden now you're 1-3. It feels like, man, not toxic, but they'll just be, especially with Jaden Daniels doing his thing. I think the noise is going to get real loud.
I mean, it is. It's going to get loud. And I don't care what anyone says. No one's immune to it. Like, you hear the noise. They have to hear and see what's going on in Washington. They know that the conversations and the comparisons are coming. And so, not that you're saying you do this to shut off the noise, but maybe you can learn from what Washington is doing. A little less is more. Give your playmaker an opportunity to make plays, but you don't have to just lean on him entirely. If they do that, they'll have a chance to get him back on track, and then they get a win, and they're right where they need to be.
No doubt. Go ahead, Lance.
Well, I was just going to say, I think this is where Eberflus and Ryan Poles have got to do their jobs, which is manage the internal processing of the external noise. Because, I mean, to me, these are the silliest conversations, and they're all true. But much of this has been the expectations and people freaking out is because of outside. Not one of us used the phrase. I doubt that one of us stood on a table and said Caleb Williams is a generational quarterback, because you may say he has some generational potential or he does this or that well, but this phrase generational has been thrown out so much lately, and the hype surrounding Caleb and Drake May I remember watching the tape and I finished Drake May. I'm like, what? This guy's not even close to Jaden Daniels this year. Like, what? I've been hearing that it's for sure Caleb and then it's Drake May. That's what all the outside people have been telling me when I get to the tape. Then I watch Caleb Williams, like, Jaden Daniels had a better senior year than Caleb Williams. And there was no debating that. You could have argued Bo Nix had a better senior year than Caleb Williams. So I think that the outside noise is what created and the outrageous expectations. But I actually, after watching every one of the Chicago Bears games this year, I come away thinking, okay, he's on pace for what he needs to do. They're going to be fine. I wouldn't panic one single bit if I were the Chicago Bears. The thing that really impressed me last week is he tried to play on schedule. He was trying harder and I think the last 2 weeks he's done a much better job, Bucky, of trying to be the guy that he needs to be. And that doesn't happen overnight.
No, it doesn't happen overnight. And you're right. Like, I think the big thing for him, he's so used to kind of making every play in college, like just kind of running around. And it kind of reminded me a lot of like Russell Wilson at times. You see Russell have these crazy scrambles in Seattle when he was younger and end up making a play. For Caleb, I would like him to stay in the pocket and be more of an on-time, on-target playmaker as opposed to the improvisational magician that he can be. Because if he can learn how to play on time, he's not only going to preserve his body, but he's going to make it harder on the defense, because when he does flee the pocket, it's going to be a little bit of the surprise, much like Pat Mahomes surprises people with these 15 and 20-yard scrambles in the postseason when you see him kind of like, hey, I'll do whatever it takes to win.
The last thing button up on this, on the Bears side of things, one of the positive developments I think you're going to see is Caleb, to throw on time, you got to have trust, right, Buck? You got to have trust and faith, Lance. And when you look at Caleb and Lance, the reason why I was so high on Caleb, I didn't use the word generational, but the reason why I personally loved him so much is because of what I saw the year before. And that version of Caleb Williams from his first year at USC, that version is what got everybody fired up. And if you go back to that version, he had a guy in Jordan Addison that he had supreme confidence and trust in, a first-round caliber receiver. He knew where he was going to be, and that allowed him to have the confidence to throw with more anticipation. And if you saw Roma Dunze and what he did last week, and that trust is starting to grow here, that is going to be a major factor for Caleb. Oh, throw it on time. Well, if I don't trust that we're on the same page, that's a chemistry thing. That takes time, and it looks like that was a breakthrough with Roma Dunze last week. And
Cole Kmet. And anytime you have a tight end you're willing to throw to, it makes your job easier as a young quarterback. Cole Kmet had a big game. Roma Dunze looked great. And then, they get Roshan Johnson back to start to be the pounder that sometimes DeAndre Swift isn't. But I think they really are a year away from drafting more offensive linemen. I mean, just quite honestly, I think the left tackle, you can upgrade Braxton. I think you need to get better.
Darnell hasn't played great either, to be honest.
No, he really hasn't. I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon, but Ryan Poles can really settle in on offensive line, free agency, and in the draft, and I think that'll make a big difference because the weapons are there. Like there are reasons that he should feel, as you mentioned, Dan, you use the word faith. You can have faith in throwing it up to a Dunze probably more than any wide receiver who came out of this draft.
Yeah, and look, Keenan not having been out there has been a factor as well and hadn't been healthy. So, all right, let's take a break. We come back. We'll get to the game of the week. We'll hit on a couple more games as well.
It's time for the game of the week presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. This week, it's the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Green Bay Packers. The spread is -3 favoring the Packers. The over-under is 43.5. Great game to discuss. LZ, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think if we're not going to talk about side or total, we're just going to talk about the game. How about I think you have to – I think you first – I always like to straddle that line here with the NFL. I'm never sure what I can say on that one. But I watched Minnesota against San Francisco, and then I watched them against Houston. So you're talking about two offenses that come from that Shanahan coaching tree and offensive style. And, I mean, he messed it up for both teams. Flores was all over the quarterbacks. I think Minnesota right now, when you look at Minnesota, and here's another offense where, I mean, it's Green Bay. It comes from that same tree. So you wonder, can he do it for 3 weeks in a row? Is he going to be able to do it for 3 weeks in a row? I thought, Malik Willis did a great job last week of getting that win on the road. But Sam Darnold is just a different player right now that he has not a lot is expected of him. I mean, this may be a little different version of it, but maybe we're seeing another version of Baker Mayfield, where a guy later in his career is able to be an offense manager, has some good play calling, good talent around him. All of a sudden, he's comfortable and he becomes, maybe in the same. I don't want to say he's going to be. I'm not going to say Sam Darnold's going to be what I expected him to be. But the Sam Darnold I saw last week, escapability in the pocket, could throw with some accuracy. I thought Sam Darnold was really good. I think Green Bay's got their hands full on this one because this is Justin Jefferson's the same guy he always is. Really, really talented. Jalen Naylor gives you a deep threat. But I think right now defensively, I did not expect Jonathan Grenard, and he was great in Houston last year, but I did not expect Jonathan Grenard to have this level of impact. I would say there's a potential that Grenard has upgraded the rush over Danielle Hunter. Houston just swapped out those rushers, and right now Grenard's getting after the pocket better than Hunter is.
It's funny you talked about that, right? You talked about Grenard and the Minnesota Vikings and those things, and I don't think you talk about the Minnesota Vikings without talking about Brian Flores and what he's been able to do with that unique and clever scheme. You talked about the way he's unleashed Jonathan Grenard and how he's been so dominant, but it's also the way that they're able to kind of create those favorable matchups at the point of attack, but all that pre-snap disguise, post-snap movement, where you have no idea who's who and what's what. And there are times where C.J. Stroud had to be saying to himself, I have no idea what coverage you're in. They show him one thing, and they completely get to another thing from unlikely positions. Harrison Smith is at the line of scrimmage, but then he gets to the post, which you're not supposed to be able to do. This is a very difficult defense. And as much as I talk about the schematics, the effort they play with, the attitude that they play with, and the physicality that shows up on tape, man, it has all of Brian Flores' fingertips and fingerprints all on it.
A couple things here. As we're recording this, it's not for sure when Jordan Love is back and going to play. It could be in this ball game. So I do want to give Malik Willis his love before he ends up handing the baton back to Jordan Love. So I went back, pulled up his report here from my report. I know Lance, you got one as well, but thick, sturdy quarterback, elite arm strength and playmaking ability, quick feet in the setup, throws from a wide, firm base, usually releases the ball out of a 3/4 slot and he'll jump out of his hand. He generates incredible RPMs and flashes the ability to fit balls in tight windows. Accuracy is inconsistent. At times he gets too wide with his feet. The ball sails to the perimeter. Shown the ability to change ball speed, but he can improve on those layer throws. Misses out on some completions because it's just too flat. He's effective extending and creating against pressure, which he faced a ton of. He's outstanding on draws, powers, and zone reads as a runner, has burst and pulls through tackles. Overall, Willis is still a work in progress, but he has the most upside of any QB in this class. So you look at just taking time. And I feel like, man, he obviously wasn't afforded the time there in Tennessee. Now he's gotten a much better situation. You mentioned it, Lance, about the Baker Mayfield comparison with Sam Darnold. I talked to Kevin O'Connell, right after night one of the draft, after they'd taken JJ McCarthy. And he had said he had already met with Sam and told him, look, Sam, you're going to be the guy. You're going to have your Baker Mayfield year. This is going to get you right. And then it's going to sit. Then we're going to have, then we're in a good spot with where we are. And having JJ's a young guy, you're going to get rolling. He was supremely confident that Sam Darnold was going to play really, really well because of the resources they had around him. And that's exactly what's happened. He's got two plus touchdowns in each game this year. He's been excellent. When you look at Malik Willis, though, just again to give him his love, you talked about Flores, and he'll probably get heated up. He's been blitzed 40% of his dropbacks this season, second most in the league. Malik Willis has. In those, he's completed 8 of 13 for 94 yards and a touchdown, and just taken 1 sack. So this is something, even though Flores disguises it and they have a good group, it's not like, anybody else has been just laying back and rushing 4 against Malik Willis. This is something he's seen since he got on the field, Buck.
Yeah, absolutely. And give them credit. And DJ, we always talk about the things that are essential for young quarterbacks. We talked about the 3 Ps. We talked about the play caller, the playmakers around him, and then the pass protectors that keep him clean in the pocket. And what we have seen, all of those things have helped Malik Willis play at a high level. Look, can't say enough about the job that Matt LaFleur has done. Tweaked, almost overhauled the offense quickly to allow Malik Willis to utilize his athleticism. We've seen some power read, some zone read stuff to put the ball in his hands on the perimeter. The passing game, the playmakers around really stepping up. Those young, unheralded playmakers from the Packers doing what they do and what they continue to do for Jordan Love first and now for Malik Willis. And then the offensive line has kept him upright. He's not taking shots. And I would say that this version of Malik Willis is the version that every scout envisioned when they thought about what he could be at the next level. So having an opportunity to potentially watch him against the Minnesota Vikings should be fun. Are you going to read your report?
Yeah, Lance, you want to jump in there? Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I was looking at the end of mine. It just says on the pro level, additional film work and a layered pro-style passing attack could allow for more focused reads and help him see the field faster and more clearly. Play callers must lean into getting to what Bucky said, play callers must lean into a special talent as a runner and include called runs into the game plan. Even if Willis fails to reach his passing potential, running ability doesn't slump, and he has the talent to produce on the ground at a level between Hurts and Jackson. I think this is the perfect offense for him from a passing standpoint, and this is what makes what Brian Flores is doing so great is that we all know, this scheme for C.J. Stroud, for Tua, for Purdy, we've seen for Jordan Love, it's worked for Sam Darnold now. That's why what Flores has done, that's why you really can't emphasize this enough. What he's done so far against those offenses, those players, and that talent is really, really spectacular. Now, somebody pointed out he did that to Detroit the first time last year and also Green Bay the first time. And then the second time around, they were all better. But I don't know. The way the teams are shelling up and taking away the explosive plays, I think there's I think we're seeing a fundamental shift. I know it's a longer discussion, but the amount of rushing attacks we're seeing, the amount of deep balls that are being taken away, I feel like we're seeing a fundamental shift in how defenses are going to play offenses moving forward.
Yeah, it's part of the revolution. And you're continuing to see it as we talk about the game being cyclical. The more the running game comes back, the more likely we are to get the deep ball coming back, because you got to lure the safeties to the line of scrimmage before you can throw it over the top. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code MTS. New customers can bet just $5 to get $200 in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code MTS. The crown is yours.
All right, we're going to tackle one more game, and then if you will tune in tomorrow, we'll have some more of these games previewed. But let's get through one more game right here. Lance, we look at the Broncos and the Jets. I was talking to someone about the Jets who's been around this organization for a very long time, and he said we've never had a quarterback performance like the one we had from Aaron Rodgers. There's been some good plays, good moments, but he's like, that's what it must feel like when you just see
you got a quarterback,
not even just competent, like outstanding, like Pro Bowl level quarterback play. They just have never had it there. And it's like, look, if you look around the league, we've talked a lot about these young quarterbacks. You were just mentioning about the too high shell you're seeing. Take away big plays, make teams methodically move the ball down the field. And young quarterbacks, that's a tall order for them. They can't, they just don't have the catalog of plays and experience to be able to do that. And the exodus of a lot of these top tier quarterbacks over the quarterback drain over the last 4 years, there's not many OGs left with all of that knowledge and ability, and Aaron Rodgers is one of them. So if they can get this version that we just saw of Aaron Rodgers, I think all the hype about the Jets over the last couple of years, I think it might actually be justified, Lance, if we see that version of Aaron Rodgers.
So when we have to make our predictions, I had the Jets winning the division, but I'm trying to remember if I had them winning the Super Bowl. It was either I may have them losing in the Super Bowl. And the reason is because I just never believed that Aaron Rodgers wasn't the same guy from a passing standpoint. Now, after the first week, I was like, scratch his prediction. But after last week, the arm's still there. I don't know. Do you guys feel like he's I feel very comfortable in saying, of all the quarterbacks I've seen in my life, and I was younger watching John Elway, but I think that Aaron Rodgers is the most talented quarterback I've ever seen play.
Thrower.
Yeah, but he also, DJ, has not only pocket presence and pocket mobility, he can get outside of the pocket and make those throws as well. Like, what more do you need to – you don't think he's the most talented total package of quarterback?
I would say
in terms of talent, I think Mahomes can do some things that Aaron can't do.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
I would say going back to when we were scouting the West Coast, DJ, because you did this draft class, right? When it was him and Alex Smith. I think when I graded him, I gave him a bottom of the first round grade, because the version that we saw in college, you didn't see him doing the stuff that he did in the game. Yeah. Like he was it sat on the shoulder. It was very methodical, his approach under Jeff Tedford.
Yeah, it's more mechanical.
And you didn't see the athleticism and I would say the special stuff that he unleashed or discovered during his time in Green Bay. The thing about the OGs playing now, and Tom Brady said it as he was nearing the end of his career, he was like, why would I get out now when the game is so easy for me? These guys have such a catalog of plays and memories and knowledge of what they're facing that it is easy. And so even a diminished version of Aaron Rodgers, where he may not have the movement skills that he had a couple years ago, he may not have the arm talent that he had, he still can function at a high level with his mind being the driving force more so than his physical skills.
Well, and the placement is still,
the release. Up and down throws. Nobody's ever been better at up and down throws.
Never. And when I think about it, I think that there's going to be three quarterbacks that everyone will – I think you're seeing it now. There's three quarterbacks that come to mind that players moving forward will be influenced by, whether they know it or not in the future. And it's Aaron Rodgers. So we've always seen this with Malik Willis, and we've seen this with Zach Wilson. We've seen guys who want to emulate the trick shot stuff. Matthew Stafford, because you look at Pat Mahomes and it's like that's Matt Stafford. And I read growing up, he was a big fan of Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford was an arm angle guy a long time ago. And then I think Lamar Jackson will be the other guy where players will look at Lamar and see, okay, there may be guys like Jaden Daniels who are better passers, I think, than Lamar. But I think those three guys, Matt Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, and well, of course, and I'm leaving out Mahomes only because Mahomes is the answer, but I think Mahomes was kind of derived a little bit from Matthew Stafford with some of his throwing stuff. But I guess you have to say at this point, you have to say Pat Mahomes. I mean, we've got Raiola's son, Dylan Raiola.
Yep.
Right?
Gosh, that's kind of freaky. It's kind of freaking me out how much he's trying to imitate him.
He is a mirror image. It is crazy. It is Single White Female, the movie from the early 90s.
I remember, but it is very similar to Kobe and MJ. Like they idolized them so much, they loved them so much that the mannerisms became theirs and they don't even realize it. He may not even realize how much of the Pat Mahomes things he's put on because he's
got the haircut, he's got the everything about it.
Glasses.
He has become him. Like he is morphed into him. And it's fun to watch. He is talented though. I mean, he is a really talented quarterback. I can't wait to watch him grow. But it's fun to see.
To put a bow on that, talking about what Brady was talking about, what you guys were just mentioning that. We're coming up on October and Halloween. So if you grew up and you had those little like a corn maze, right? You have the hay, you have the stacks of hay, and it's a maze to get through. The analogy I would use is like, okay, who would you pick to get through the maze? Is it the guy who runs the fastest? You're like, no, it's the guy who's been through that maze 100 times. He can walk through the maze and get to the finish line before the guy who's sprinting in all the wrong directions. Like at some point in time, it's like that's just the history and the knowledge, as long as they still are upright and can still walk. That's why Aaron Rodgers, I think, is making the Jets a dangerous team. But I do want to get over real quick, Buck, to the other side with the Broncos. Was this kind of a light comes on, with Bo Nix and this offense and Sean Payton last week against who were they playing last week where he played so well?
Buccaneers.
There you go, Tampa. That was on the road, big win.
Yeah, big win. And here's the thing that we know about coaches and we also know about players. Tremendous amount of pride. The week before, they were stymied. People were talking about them. They were really disparaging marks about Bo Nix, but everyone was on Sean Payton for his handpicked guy and why wasn't it working. You give Sean Payton an opportunity to go back in the lab, to reassess what went wrong, to build a plan to help his quarterback. That's what you get on Sunday. We saw the best version of Bo Nix. And in fact, DJ, I looked at that and I make this comparison just because it makes sense to me when it comes to Sean Payton and his influence on Drew Brees. Bo Nix is not Drew Brees, but I believe that Sean Payton could look at the tape when he was at Oregon and squint and see Bo Nix doing some of the stuff that Drew Brees did for years for the Saints, and he could replicate the game plan that would allow this team to be successful in Denver.
So I'll push back on this part of it because I think when he watched him, he saw I can get 70% of Drew Brees, and then I can get 25% of Taysom Hill, and I can put all that into one body. And I have plays that I've run and designed for each of those guys, and I can do a little bit of the Taysom, not all the Taysom Hill stuff, but I can sprinkle a little of the Taysom Hill stuff, and I can do a little bit of the Drew Brees stuff. One person.
I never would have put that together, but that makes sense because the mobility, the athleticism that Bo Nix brings, and his ability to run and get on the perimeter and do some things, it is a different dimension. And you're right. He has a couple of pet cats that he likes. The pet cat that he loves is Drew Brees, but there's always like a little kitty corner for Taysom Hill because he was going to make Taysom Hill a quarterback. So now you put those together. You're right. He's very, very excited and happy about what he's getting from Bo Nix.
Another great spot, though. Like Bo Nix couldn't have gone to a better spot than Sean Payton. It was perfect for him. I think J.J. McCarthy was perfect with you won't see it this year, but J.J. over there with Kevin O'Connell was perfect. And I think Jaden Daniels with Cliff Kingsbury, and it's something we didn't, you guys may have already talked about it. I haven't.
No, we're going to do that on tomorrow's show. So put a pin in that.
All right, we'll talk about that guy because, wow, is he impressive.
How's that for a tease? That's it. We're done here. We'll pick up with that little tease that Lance left you on tomorrow's show. So be on the lookout for that. We'll see you next time right here on Move the Sticks.